I still remember the exact moment my world cracked open. Why is that entitled leech back already? We finally got the place to ourselves. My daughter-in-law's voice sliced through the salt air of my own beach house like a rusty knife, sharp and hot, carrying all the way to where I stood frozen on the welcome mat I'd knotted myself from seagrass rope. There I was, on the threshold of the home I had poured 30 years of blood and thread into, suitcase in one hand, keys cutting into the other, staring at Brittany as she blocked the doorway with her arms crossed and a smirk sharp enough to draw blood. I had driven 4 hours from the city that Friday morning, windows down, letting the promise of quiet and salt heal the ache in my shoulders, only to find my sanctuary overrun. The driveway was jammed with cars I didn't recognize. 2 shiny SUVs with out-of-state plates, a pickup loaded with coolers, and the minivan spilling neon beach toys like guts. Rap music thumped from inside, the bass rattling the seashell wind chimes I hung myself the summer Tyler turned 12. The smell of cheap barbecue smoke and spilled beer drifted out, thick and sour, mixing with the ocean breeze I used to love so much it hurt. Kids I had never seen shrieked across my lawn, kicking a soccer ball into the rose beds I had babied since they were seedlings, petals scattering like drops of blood on the grass. My Adirondack chairs, the ones I painted seafoam green the year Mark died, were buried under wet towels and half-eaten bags of chips. My geranium pots, bright red every summer for 2 decades, lay cracked and bleeding soil onto the deck, the terracotta shards glinting like broken teeth in the morning sun. Brittany didn't even pretend to be embarrassed. She stood there in my favorite turquoise sundress, the one I bought on clearance in 2011 and only wore on the best days, the cotton now clinging to her tan skin with someone else's sweat. She held a margarita in one of my hand-painted glasses, the rim crusted with salt and a smear of her coral lipstick. "Audrey, we didn't think you'd show up till next month. Tyler said the house was free all summer. We're making memories with the kids. You wouldn't want to ruin that, would you?" If you've ever felt your heart stop and restart at the same time, that was me right then. The words leech and ruin echoed inside my skull like a migraine starting behind my eyes. If my story is hitting you hard, please subscribe to the channel and stay with me. There are more truths like this I need to share, and I don't want you to miss the next one. I forced my voice steady, even though my throat felt like lined with sandpaper. "Brittany, this is my house. I come every Memorial Day weekend. Where's Tyler?" She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might stick, the way Tyler used to do when he was 15 and thought the world owed him something. "Working, obviously. Some of us have real jobs. Look, there's no space. My parents flew in from Arizona, my brother brought his whole crew, and the guest rooms are packed. You'll have to find somewhere else." Her mother appeared behind her like a second act in a play I never auditioned for, a woman I'd met exactly twice, sizing me up like I was something stuck to her shoe. The sun caught the gold hoops in her ears and flashed like a warning. So this is the famous mother-in-law. Thought she'd be taller. They laughed. Brittany, her mother, her sister-in-law Kendra, some cousin in a tank top. Sharp, practiced laughter that cut straight through the humid air and lodged under my ribs. I stood there at 68 in my linen travel pants and sensible sandals, clutching dignity by the fingertips while the salt wind whipped my hair across my face like it was trying to hide me. I swallowed the scream crawling up my throat. It tasted like copper. "I'll just drop my bag and figure things out." Brittany stepped fully into the doorway, planting her bare feet wide, the turquoise hem fluttering against her knees. Actually, no. Tyler and I decided this place is wasted sitting empty 11 months a year. The kids need the beach. We need family time. You have that tiny apartment in Raleigh. Be reasonable. Reasonable. The word burned hotter than the sun on my neck, hotter than the humiliation crawling up my spine. I felt every year of my age settle on my shoulders like wet sand. I turned away before I said something I couldn't take back, walked down the steps I had painted myself every spring, 32 coats in 29 years, and got back in my car. My hands shook so badly I could barely start the engine, the keys rattling like bones. As I pulled out, gravel spitting under the tires, I saw Brittany in the rearview mirror raise her glass in a mocking toast from my porch, the sun flashing off the rim like she was toasting my defeat. That was the moment something inside me snapped awake, the way it did the night Mark collapsed in the driveway, and I realized I would have to become someone harder than I ever wanted to be. That was the moment I decided Audrey Monroe was done being reasonable. I checked into the Sea Glass Inn 2 miles down the road, $142 a night I couldn't really spare, and sat on the lumpy bed with its faded floral spread, replaying every second until my chest ached. The house wasn't just a house. It was the first thing I ever owned outright after my husband Mark died of a heart attack at 49, leaving me with a 10-year-old son and a stack of bills taller than I was. I was a seamstress then, working out of the back room of a dry cleaner, fingers raw from sunrise to midnight, the hum of the machine my only company. Every dress hem, every prom alteration, every Halloween costume I sewed bought another plank of pine, another bag of concrete, another foot of this dream. I could still smell the sawdust when I closed my eyes, feel the splinters under my fingernails.
Tyler used to run barefoot across the framing the day the foundation was poured, his laughter echoing off the empty sky. "Mom, is this really ours?" he asked, eyes huge, sand between his toes. "Every nail," I told him, hammering one in myself just to prove I could, the vibration traveling up my arm like a promise. 29 years later, my own son had handed the keys to a woman who called me a leech in my own home. I pressed my palms to my eyes until I saw stars, terrified for one breathless second that maybe they were right, maybe I had become the relic they saw. Then the fear turned to fury, slow and steady, the way tide turns. I didn't sleep. At 5 a.m. I was drinking bad lobby coffee that tasted like burnt pennies, plotting on the back of a Sea Glass Inn notepad. I drove back at 7:30, needing clothes, my blood pressure pills, and answers. The front door, my front door with the little brass turtle knocker Mark bought me in Key West, was locked. I had to ring the bell like a stranger, the chime sounding foreign in my own house. Brittany's sister-in-law, Kendra, answered in my white bathrobe, the one with tiny embroidered sailboats, hair wrapped in a towel turban like she was at a spa. "Oh, you again." "I need my medication and a few things." My voice came out flatter than I expected, like someone had pressed all the air out of it. She sighed theatrically like I was asking for a kidney and stepped aside just enough for me to squeeze past. The house smelled like a frat party left in the sun, sour and sticky. My couch cushions were on the floor, one split open with stuffing bleeding out. Someone had used my white quilt, the one I pieced from Mark's old Navy shirts, as a beach blanket, sand ground into the stitching I'd done by hand under a single lamp for 3 winters. In the kitchen, my heart stopped. My grandmother's depression glass cake stand lay shattered on the tile, pink shards glittering like broken promises in the slanted morning light. Kendra shrugged when I gasped, the sound catching in my throat like a sob I refused to let out. "Kids, you know. Brittany said it was old anyway." "Old?" That cake stand survived the move from Virginia after the flood of '99, wrapped in my wedding dress to keep it safe. It held Tyler's first birthday cake, his graduation sheet cake, the tiny wedding cake when he married Brittany right there on my deck. I felt the loss like a physical blow behind my knees. I climbed the stairs on legs that didn't feel like mine, each creak a memory. Tyler sliding down the banister, Mark carrying me over the threshold the first night we slept here. My bedroom, my sanctuary with the pale blue walls I mixed myself, and the window that caught sunrise over the water, was occupied. Brittany's parents slept in my bed, snoring. Suitcases open like gaping mouths, my jewelry box on the dresser like it belonged to them. My photographs of Mark and Tyler were face down, as if even their frozen smiles were too much trouble. I opened the dresser for underwear and found Brittany's neon bikini instead, still damp. My drawers had been emptied into black trash bags lined up by the door, so we wouldn't have to move everything again when you stopped being dramatic, Kendra explained from the hallway, chewing gum loud enough to echo. I took one bag, found my pills in the bathroom. Someone had used my prescription toothbrush, bristles splayed and brown with what I prayed was only coffee, and went looking for Brittany. She was on the deck, drinking coffee from the mug Tyler made me in third-grade art class. World's Best Mom, painted in wobbly letters now chipped from too many dishwashers. "We need to talk," I said, gripping the doorframe so hard the wood bit into my palm. She didn't even look up from her phone, thumbs flying. "There's nothing to talk about, Audrey. Tyler's on board. This house should be in his name anyway. You're 68. How much longer are you planning to hog it?" "Hog it?" The words came out strangled. "Look, we're doing you a favor. The place needs life. Kids running around, barbecues, music. Not one old lady rattling around feeling sorry for herself." She finally glanced up, eyes cold and bright as beach glass. The words landed like punches, each one knocking the wind out of me a little more. Old lady? Hog it? Feeling sorry for herself? I felt the years pile on my back all at once. Felt every skipped vacation, every skipped meal, every skipped dream so Tyler could have braces in college and a wedding on this very deck. "Where is my son, Brittany?" My voice cracked on his name. "Working, like I said. And honestly, he's tired of the guilt trips every time we want to use the beach house you never share." She took a sip of coffee, leaving a perfect coral print on the rim of my mug. "You act like we're stealing when all we want is a little family time." "Share." I paid the $6,400 property taxes last March with money I earned hemming wedding gowns for strangers until my eyes burned. I replaced the roof in 2018. $18,000 I saved by skipping vacations for 6 years, eating oatmeal while they went to Disney. But sure, I never share. I left before I did something that would land me in jail, before I grabbed that mug and shattered it the way they'd shattered everything else. In the driveway, I noticed the realtor magnet on one of the SUVs. Coastal luxury homes. My stomach dropped so fast I tasted bile. That afternoon, I pretended I'd forgotten my laptop charger. The sun was brutal now, turning the air thick as syrup. Brittany waved me in without getting up from the blow-up flamingo pool float she'd dragged into my living room, water dripping onto the hardwood I'd refinished myself. While everyone splashed and screamed, the noise pounding against my temples, I slipped upstairs to the little closet behind the water heater, my hiding spot no one knew about, not even Mark when he was alive. I kept important papers there in a fire safe: the deed, Mark's death certificate, Tyler's birth certificate, insurance policies, the hospital bracelet from the day he was born. The safe was open, papers strewn like confetti after a bad party. My deed was out, corners curled, with sticky notes in Brittany's loopy handwriting: "Need Tyler to sign here," and "Lawyer says dementia angle works. Dr. Patel owed me from sorority." The air left my lungs in a whoosh. I found the bombshell folded inside an envelope, a draft durable power of attorney appointing Brittany my guardian, due to early onset dementia diagnosed 4/12/2024, signed by a doctor I'd never met. There was an appraisal, my house valued at $1,180,000, and a printout of a mortgage pre-approval for $900,000 in Tyler and Brittany's names. A sticky note in Brittany's loopy scrawl: "With her money, we pay off our cards, finish the basement, Disney cruise every year. She won't even notice." The casual cruelty of those last 4 words, "she won't even notice," felt like a slap with a wet towel. I photographed everything with shaking hands, the phone flashlight trembling across the pages. Then I found the medical report, invoice number 4721, Carolina Quick Care, $250 cash paid 4/15/2024. Diagnosis, moderate cognitive impairment. Recommendations, immediate guardianship. Signed by a physician whose license I looked up later had been suspended twice for prescribing opioids to college kids. The date was 3 weeks before they even arrived. They weren't just squatting. They were staging a coup, and they'd been rehearsing for months. I left the house quietly, the floorboards no longer recognizing my step. I drove straight to the county courthouse, windows down, so the wind could dry the tears I refused to acknowledge, and paid $28 for certified copies of every document that proved that house was mine alone. Then I went to the bank, the air conditioning hitting me like a slap after the heat. Mrs. Ramirez, the branch manager who'd known me for 15 years, looked up my accounts. I had $94,000 in savings, $31,000 in a CD, and the house free and clear. More than enough for war. When she saw my face, she came around the desk and took my hands. "Audrey, are you in trouble?" she asked softly, the way you ask someone if they're dying. "My daughter-in-law thinks I have dementia and is trying to steal my home." The words tasted like rust. Her face hardened, eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "Do you want a letter from the bank confirming your full mental capacity to manage your finances?" "2 copies, please," I whispered, and for the first time all weekend I felt the ground steady beneath me. That night I retained Rachel Thornton, the best elder law attorney in Wilmington. Her office smelt like lemon polish and righteous anger. Her retainer was $7,500. I paid it without blinking, the pen steady in my hand for the first time since Brittany's voice cut through the salt air. Tuesday morning, the sky the color of a fresh bruise. Rachel, 2 sheriff deputies, and a locksmith met me at the house at 8 a.m. sharp. The air was already thick with humidity and the promise of storms. Brittany was in my kitchen feeding pancakes to children who weren't mine, while her family scrolled phones at my table, syrup sticky on the wood I'd oiled myself every spring. The doorbell rang. I let Rachel do the talking, my heart hammering so hard I felt it in my teeth. "Good morning. I am Rachel Thornton, counsel for Audrey Monroe, sole owner of this property. We are here to execute an emergency eviction for criminal trespass." Brittany's fork clattered against my grandmother's plate, another survivor for now. "You can't be serious," her voice cracked on the last word. Deputy Harris handed her the order, crisp and official. "Ma'am, this is a court-signed, immediate vacation of premises. You have 2 hours." The screaming started immediately, high and panicked, like gulls fighting over garbage. Brittany's father threatened to call his lawyer in Phoenix, face red above his Hawaiian shirt. Her mother sobbed about plane tickets, mascara running in black rivers. Kendra filmed everything on her phone until the deputy took it away with a look that could freeze fire. I stood on my own porch, morning light slanting across the geraniums they hadn't managed to kill yet, and watched the circus unfold. The air smelled of panic now, sharp as ozone before lightning. Rachel laid the rest on the table like a royal flush. Criminal complaints for theft. My grandmother's sapphire ring was missing, along with Mark's Navy retirement watch. Forgery, filing false instruments, conspiracy to commit elder fraud. The fake medical report alone carried up to 10 years. She said it calmly, the way other people talk about the weather, and I felt something unfurl in my chest. Relief, maybe, or vindication. Tyler arrived 20 minutes later, tie askew, face the color of spoiled milk. He took one look at the deputies and knew, the way you know when the doctor walks in with that face. "Mom, we can fix this." His voice broke on my name. "There's no fixing betrayal, Tyler." The words came out steady, surprising even me. But Brittany said, "I don't care what Brittany said, I care what you did, or didn't do." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the little boy who used to fall asleep on my chest and the man who'd signed away my sanity for a Disney cruise. The collision made me dizzy. He tried the little boy eyes that always worked when he was 10, lashes wet, lower lip trembling. They didn't work at 38. Not anymore. By 9:45, the cars were loaded, doors slamming like gunshots. Brittany hurled one last grenade as she stormed past me, clutching a diaper bag in righteous fury. This isn't over, Audrey. You'll die lonely, and we'll still get the house. Her voice cracked with something that might have been fear. Rachel smiled sweetly, the way a cat smiles at a cornered mouse. Threatening my client is being recorded, Mrs. Monroe. Have a nice day. The door closed, silence rushed in like the tide after a storm, cool and clean, and mine. I walked through every room, touching walls, breathing in the faint scent of lemon oil and ocean that was finally mine again, letting the quiet settle over me like a blanket I'd forgotten I owned. The cleaning crew came the next day, $1,200 well spent. They hauled out 12 bags of trash, scrubbed black dye from my tub until the porcelain gleamed again, glued my cake stand shards even though it would never be the same. I paid them extra to stay late to erase every fingerprint that wasn't mine. 2 weeks later, Tyler showed up alone on a Sunday evening, eyes red, holding an envelope like a white flag. The sunset painted the deck gold, the same light that used to turn Mark's hair copper when we sat here planning a future that never quite arrived. Mom, I'm so sorry. Brittany hid the worst parts from me. I swear I never wanted. His voice cracked like thin ice. You signed the power of attorney, Tyler. Your signature is on the page that says I'm incompetent. I kept my voice level, but inside something was screaming. I thought it was just in case you got sick later. She said all adults do it. He looked so young standing there, 38 going on 12. You're not 10 anymore. You're a grown man who let his wife fake a dementia diagnosis so you could cash in on my death early. The words tasted like acid, but I said them anyway. He cried then, shoulders shaking the way they did when he was 6 and his goldfish died. I didn't move to comfort him. Some things you don't get to be comforted from. He brought back Grandma's ring. He opened the envelope with shaking fingers. The sapphire winked in the dying light, catching the same sunset that used to make Mark kiss me for no reason. And Dad's watch, and the silver dollars from your safe. I took them without touching his fingers, the metal cool against my palm, like forgiveness I wasn't ready to give. Is there any way? No, Tyler. You chose. Now live with it. He left broken, shoulders folded in on themselves, the screen door banging behind him like a period at the end of a sentence we'd both been writing for years. The criminal case wrapped 6 months later on a February day, so cold the ocean looked like hammered steel. Brittany and Tyler took a plea, $38,000 in restitution and fines, 300 hours community service each, 5 years probation, permanent criminal records that will follow them like shadows. The doctor lost his license for good, names stripped from every directory like it never existed. Their legal bills topped $60,000, more than my house was worth when I bought the raw sandlot and dared to dream. I changed the locks again, added cameras that ping my phone if so much as a gull lands on the deck, rewrote my will at Rachel's office while drinking the good coffee she keeps for clients who've earned it. The house goes to the local women's shelter when I'm gone. Women who know what it's like to build something brick by brick only to have someone try to take it. Tyler gets nothing but the lesson and maybe someday the memory of who his mother really was. Some nights, I still sit on the same deck where Brittany mocked me, listening to waves that don't care about human greed or broken hearts. The geraniums bloomed red again this summer, fierce and defiant, roots clawing into the sand like they refuse to be moved. I'm 69 now, stronger than I've ever been. My hands still know every stitch, but now they know how to hold a boundary too. I sew when I want, travel when I want, took myself to Italy last fall, ate gelato on a bridge in Florence and didn't feel guilty once. I open my door to friends who love me, not people who count my silver while planning my funeral. If you've ever been counted out, written off, told you're too old to matter, stay with me. There are more stories coming, and everyone ends the same way. We rise. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever had to fight your own family for what was yours? I read every single one. And if this touched you, subscribe. You're not alone, and neither am I. The ocean keeps rolling in, washing everything clean. And my door stays locked to anyone who ever called me a leech in my own home.